Of course, the news today that Harry's memoir is going to be published in the near future will just alarm the royal family here in England about what he's actually going to say to earn his money.
Well, you know, Piers, you're the first person to say how limited Prince Harry is, unfortunately, and how his wife trades off her husband's fame and fortune, or not so great fortune now. I mean, this is the problem, but we're still interested because, after all, he's a great character in our modern day.
This week we brought to you fresh news that Harry had been staying at the San Vicente bungalows to take a break from his family, despite owning a sprawling Montecito property together with Guesthouse. And this week, those rumours are intensifying.
I think personally, they've separated their professional lives, but I think what's really a great problem for them now, as of the last few weeks, is that Meghan has got no real income anymore. She's finished.
Nobody expected this detail to surface, but Tom Bower just dropped a claim that flips the entire story around Harry and Meghan's marriage. According to the longtime royal biographer, there's a very specific clause hidden deep inside their prenuptial agreement, page 14, clause 7. And the shocking part, Harry reportedly signed it without fully realizing what it actually meant. When you hear what that clause supposedly says, it suddenly explains why Meghan brought Sunshine Sachs back onto her team in January 2026. It also makes people question the quiet financial moves that reportedly started happening around 2022. And according to Tom Bower, that one clause could mean Harry risks losing far more than anyone ever expected.
A man who she abandoned for months to the media and now presents her mother, Doria, speaking for the first time, telling outright lies about her ex-husband. I mean, this was a calculated attempt against the family.
But before getting into that clause, there's a big reason Tom Bower is one of the few people who could even uncover something like this. He isn't some random blogger throwing out wild rumors online. Bower is a former barrister and a veteran investigative journalist who spent decades digging into powerful figures who believed nobody could touch them. Over a 40-year career, he investigated major media empires, powerful business leaders, and high-profile celebrities, often exposing details that many people tried hard to keep hidden. When his books are published, legal teams go through every line because his research has to hold up under intense scrutiny.
Tom Bower, the legendary royal author, is sharpening his quill for a new edition of his book set to reveal huge secrets inside Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's marriage.
For his book Revenge, Bower reportedly spoke with more than 80 people connected to Meghan in different parts of her career, former staff, industry contacts, and professionals who dealt with contracts and business arrangements. His approach isn't about random internet chatter or anonymous speculation. He builds cases step by step, the same way a lawyer would. Documents, interviews, and verifiable details that could stand up to serious questioning. So when Bower claims he's seen evidence pointing to certain prenup terms, he says that conclusion came from conversations with legal professionals familiar with royal marriage agreements and how those contracts are structured.
Aggressive PR for the Sussexes got way beyond herself because she really doesn't understand the British royal family or Britain, but understands how to project her clients. And so I think she got it wrong by leaking it or even letting anyone know about it.
And here's where things start getting interesting. Royal prenuptial agreements are not like the ones most couples sign. A normal prenup usually lists what each person owns before the marriage and explains what happens to shared property if the relationship ends. It might outline financial support or timelines tied to the length of the marriage. But agreements connected to the royal world are far more complicated. They're designed to protect historic assets, properties held in trust for future generations, and even rules about titles and public conduct. Past royal separations included extremely detailed conditions about titles and public roles after a split, showing just how carefully these agreements are written. But the situation between Harry and Meghan wasn't simple at all, and one major factor made things even more complicated: California law. In that state, community property rules say that money earned during a marriage is usually shared equally between both spouses. That means deals, business income, and projects created during the relationship can legally belong to both people. So when massive entertainment agreements started appearing, like streaming contracts and media projects, those earnings automatically fell into that shared category. But Tom Bower's sources claim the prenup included a clause specifically designed to deal with that exact issue.
Meghan herself.
And Meghan herself.
In the months before she met Harry, was setting up paparazzi pictures in London. She now acts as if the paparazzi are literally the devil incarnate.
She begged the paparazzi to photograph her and they wouldn't. And when they did, she says, "Oh, I don't want to, I'm hurt." And that ridiculous story about how they first met, The whole thing was a tissue of inaccuracies, to be polite.
Because what do you make of that? Because as you know, Harry was always very insistent.
And this is where the story takes a dramatic turn. According to Bauer, the clause didn't just say everything would be split evenly. Instead, it reportedly included detailed language about intellectual property rights. Basically, who controls the stories, the branding, and the business ventures connected to their public image. That includes projects built around their brand, partnerships, and even certain creative work tied to their media deals. Here's the key detail Bauer points to. Meghan was reportedly listed as the business manager for several of their joint ventures. She handled negotiations, oversaw partnerships, and helped structure the deals that brought in huge revenue. When you combine that role with California property law and the wording inside the prenup, it creates a situation where she could have stronger legal control over some of those income streams. In other words, the way the agreements were structured might place her in a very powerful position when it comes to the money connected to their shared brand. But Bauer says the most surprising part isn't the clause itself, it's when it allegedly appeared. According to the people he spoke with, that section wasn't originally in the 2018 agreement when they first married. Instead, the prenup was reportedly updated later through an amendment, and the claim is that Harry signed that amendment trusting everything was routine without examining every detail as closely as he might have. Amendments like this are actually common in marriages involving large finances or growing businesses. Couples often update prenups after big life changes, starting companies, buying property, relocating, or expanding investments. Agreements evolve as the financial picture changes.
Prince Harry is already talking to divorce lawyers?
So this is kind of interesting. This is the woman that the papers are citing for this reporting is a longtime royal insider, a socialite. She's been right. I've been following her because she's great TV. She's been right about a lot. And she's claiming she's heard from several sources now that he's hired a lawyer, and it happens to be somebody who's a great divorce lawyer and specializes in divorce. And it dovetails on other reports that he is spending a lot of his time in 2 hotels, one of which is in Montecito, another of which is not too far away, as an escape from her. It's entirely plausible. All they've done for 5 years is complain and moan and see themselves as downtrodden victims. That doesn't tend to spur a lot of feelings of love and happiness and close bonding. I mean, I guess in the crisis mode, it might.
And according to Bauer's investigation, Harry and Meghan reportedly updated their prenup around 2020, right when their lives were shifting dramatically. Think about the timing. That was the same period when they stepped away from royal duties, moved to California, and began signing huge media deals. Their foundation and business ventures were also being organized around that time. With so many financial projects launching all at once, updating legal agreements would have seemed like a practical step.
Right now, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle spent the week using the With Love Meghan promotional campaign to try and suggest that everything is rosy in their very, very rocky marriage. Not so fast, says Radar Online, which has revealed that the Sussex couple are now sleeping in separate beds. Let me take you through this bombshell, then we're going to get reaction from the royal YouTube sensation, according to Taz. Here's the report, though, from Radar Online. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's marriage is said to be under major strain as backlash has gotten under the Duchess's skin so much that she's sleeping apart from her husband and wondering whether or not she would be more popular on her own, Radar Online can reveal. Amid ongoing rumours about the Sussex's marriage being on the rocks, insiders told us Markle is cracking under the pressure of public scrutiny as she tries to claw her way back into Hollywood and launch her lifestyle brand, leaving her marriage to Harry hanging by a thread. Insiders told us Markle is starting to unravel and wonder if she would be better off as a solo act. Meghan is said to have even started to look up divorce lawyers. Sources claimed Harry was confronted by his unhappy.
But according to Bauer's sources, the amendment tied to their prenup was signed right in the middle of that intense period of business expansion. California law already meant that anything earned during the marriage could be shared between both spouses. But according to sources Tom Bauer spoke with, the amendment to their prenup may have gone even further. The claim is that the updated agreement didn't just deal with shared earnings, it focused on control. In several business filings tied to their ventures, Meghan's name reportedly appears first. On documents connected to their foundation and related projects, she is listed in key leadership roles. And the most important detail, according to Bauer's sources, is a clause clause suggesting that if the couple ever separates, majority ownership of their shared brand structure could shift in her favor. To understand why that matters, Bauer looked back at Meghan's earlier legal history. He reportedly spoke with lawyers connected to her previous divorce, and what they described about her negotiation style stood out immediately. They said she approached the process with extreme attention to detail, reviewing every condition carefully and focusing on long-term independence. From their perspective, the priority was clear: protect future opportunities and avoid complicated financial ties that could drag on for years. During that earlier split, the goal was reportedly a clean and organized separation.
But I do think that when you're mocked so publicly as they've been, their value begins to nosedive pretty quickly. And I don't think they're finding any more sources of income.
No complicated shared assets, no drawn-out financial arrangements, and no ongoing obligations tying the two sides together. The idea was simple: walk away with professional momentum still intact and financial security firmly protected. Bauer also points to something else that started years ago. Back in 2017, Meghan began working with Sunshine Sachs, a powerful public relations firm known for handling high-pressure celebrity situations. This isn't just a standard PR agency. The firm built its reputation managing major reputation crises and helping public figures navigate intense media attention, including high-profile relationship breakdowns. Then something changed. In 2020, the partnership with that PR firm ended. The public explanation mentioned budget decisions, but according to sources Bauer spoke with, the strategy shifted toward managing communications internally through their own organization. For a while, that approach appeared to work. But in January 2026, Sunshine Sachs suddenly returned to the picture, and that timing immediately raised eyebrows among media insiders. Bauer says people familiar with celebrity public relations often notice a pattern. Specialist firms are sometimes brought in months before major personal announcements, giving them time to shape messaging and media narratives. At the same time, Bauer highlights several business moves that began earlier. Since around 2022, Meghan has reportedly launched projects structured as separate business entities tied directly to her name. Trademark filings connected to those ventures do not include Harry, and she has been seen attending certain business meetings independently in Los Angeles. According to Bauer, that sequence of steps, building an individual brand, creating separate ventures, and securing independent income streams, follows a strategy often used when someone wants their professional future clearly separated from a shared partnership. The strategy, according to what Tom Bauer uncovered, is simple but powerful. Build a life that doesn't rely financially on your spouse. And he says the biggest clues aren't just hidden in legal paperwork. The real story shows up in the financial moves that started around 2022. Once you line up the timeline, the pieces start falling into place in a way that raises serious questions. Take the famous Netflix agreement everyone talked about. Headlines everywhere shouted about a massive $100 million deal, but people inside the entertainment industry explained to Bauer that deals like that rarely work the way the public thinks.
At that moment last year, she was about to promote her Netflix series and didn't want to firstly be seen with Harry, and secondly didn't want to go somewhere where she'd appear cheap and give it gratis. And this year, she is desperate to be seen.
Yeah.
And that's why she turned up. So I think she has a major problem, financially and professionally. And I think that Harry has a problem because he's lost his charity centre Bailey in Africa. He better up, and all these commercial deals are declining. I think that his reputation is somewhat toxic. And I think Invictus is his only lifeline. And there'll be problems with that too.
I mean, we've seen people leaving Invictus recently. Important, I think that's you mentioned the Disney special. Does the Disney special at all?
That number usually represents the maximum possible payout if every project in the contract actually gets produced. It's not a giant check handed over all at once. In reality, only some of the planned content moved forward. A documentary series was released and another show project was produced, but several other ideas listed in the original agreement never came to life.
Meghan has got no real income anymore. She's finished.
Right.
The Netflix series is over. There's no great podcast. They don't generate any money. And I don't see where she is going from here. I think she has a major problem. And I think as of this week, the signal for her great problem is that she turned up at Kevin Costner's.
One animated project was even canceled before it could launch. Because of that, the total money received from the deal was reportedly much lower than the headline number. Sources Bauer spoke with claim the actual earnings from that partnership were closer to about $40 million before the arrangement shifted into a smaller first-look style agreement. And that's where the timeline becomes even more interesting. Around 2022, right when several planned projects slowed down, Meghan began filing trademark applications for a new lifestyle brand venture connected only to her name. Legal teams were reportedly hired to set up new business structures that were separate from their existing shared organization. At the same time, financial arrangements around properties and investments were reportedly adjusted. Bauer says advisors familiar with high-net-worth clients told him these types of moves are often seen when someone is protecting assets or preparing for major life changes.
The insider revealed Meghan has made it clear that if and when they do split, she would demand a hefty settlement and to keep her royal title. She won't go anywhere unless it's with a title, property, and a huge sack of money. Meghan will make a deal to protect herself. Wow. Tasha is with me now.
Yeah.
This is astonishing, but remember, it comes just weeks after that Vanity Fair bombshell that Meghan is already shopping the post-divorce book to publishers.
There are more clues in the paperwork. The trademark filings connected to the lifestyle brand list Meghan as the sole owner, not a joint partner. A podcast partnership that followed was also structured under her name alone. Even her earlier book project was handled as an individual venture rather than something tied to shared business assets. For Bauer, 2022 stands out as the moment everything shifted. Before that point, most public projects were presented as joint ventures connected to the couple's shared brand. After that year, more professional activity began appearing under Meghan's individual identity. Public appearances together also became less frequent outside of scheduled commitments. And according to Bauer's interpretation of the situation, the legal clause inside that prenup amendment would give the structure needed for a future separation if things ever reached that point.
And so he became hypersensitive and blamed the media for the crashes of his relationships, never thinking that they could have something to do with himself. So he's a very complicated, depressed, unintelligent man who is seeking a role and has got really nobody on whom he could rely, which is in the end where Meghan stepped in. I mean, a needy man met a woman who could help him with his needs.
His prediction is very specific. He believes a divorce filing could potentially happen within 6 months of January 2026. The reason he highlights that window is because California law requires a 6-month residency period before someone can formally file for divorce in the state. From a legal standpoint, Meghan has already cleared one major requirement: California residency. According to Tom Bauer's analysis, she established California as her permanent base years ago, which means the legal groundwork is already in place if any court process were ever started there. And Bauer says once divorce papers are officially filed, several mechanisms written into the prenup could activate immediately. The moment that filing happens, the agreement would begin guiding what comes next. Rules connected to title usage could take effect. Financial division procedures would begin, and one clause in particular could become extremely important: the section dealing with intellectual property and brand ownership. That clause, according to Bauer's sources, would determine who controls the business identity and projects built around their public story moving forward. In practical terms, that could create huge consequences. Shared property, like the Montecito house, could potentially be evaluated or sold as part of asset division. Leadership control over certain organizations connected to their ventures might also shift depending on how the legal documents are interpreted. Even the question of future storytelling, books, interviews, or projects about royal life could be affected if specific contractual restrictions exist in the agreement. Another sensitive area is family arrangements. Because the children are residents of California, any custody decisions would fall under that state's family court system. Bauer says courts often look closely at which parent has been handling most day-to-day caregiving when determining what arrangement provides the most stability for the children. That doesn't guarantee any specific outcome, but it can play an important role in how judges evaluate the situation.
And what would Diana think of Harry attacking William in that way? She'd be appalled by her son's behavior. And that was, again, so nauseating, the way he kept on bringing in Diana. Diana, who appealed to the media all the time, who phoned journalists secretly, who brought Martin Bashir into her office, who cooperated with Andrew Morton, who kept on calling Richard K. I mean, this is ridiculous.
But the question that keeps coming up is simple. Does Harry realize how serious the legal situation could be? Tom Bower's view is that he may sense something isn't right, but might not fully understand the legal complexity around him. Bower points to several recent public moments that seemed emotional and tense, including court appearances where Harry appeared visibly frustrated while discussing media issues affecting his family. According to people Bower spoke with, Harry has been feeling increasingly isolated as legal battles and public pressure continue to build around him. Members of his legal team reportedly warned him about the financial risks connected to ongoing court fights. But Bower claims there were disagreements behind the scenes about whether stepping back or pushing forward was the better strategy.
You think the Sussex overdrive is unbelievable, but I mean, I don't think that he is going to get back in. I mean, I think that there are two reasons. One is I think that William wouldn't allow it. And secondly, the moment he got back to America, he immediately promoted Disney and his trip to Disney World, which showed that he is very commercially minded, which we'll get into later on, which makes it impossible for him. And of course, Meghan wouldn't come back to Britain.
So why keep pushing expensive lawsuits that could cost millions? That's the question Tom Bower keeps bringing up. His theory is that if someone believed those financial risks might eventually fall on the other person after a separation, the strategy suddenly looks very different. Bower's most talked about claim centers on one detail, page 14, clause 7 of the agreement. According to his interpretation, the amendment signed in 2020 may have quietly shifted control over key parts of their business world. That includes branding rights, future projects, and the income connected to their shared public story. If that reading is accurate, a potential separation could change everything: ownership of ventures, control over the brand they built together, and how future deals are handled. That's why this single clause keeps drawing so much attention. Now, the big question people keep debating is simple. Did Meghan carefully plan these moves years ahead, or is Tom Bower just connecting dots that don't actually prove anything? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you want to keep following stories like this, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next update.